Okay, sorry about that. All right, so because I'm doing double crochet, I'm going to chain up 3. 1, 2, 3, and that is counted as my first stitch. Some patterns, they'll ignore that and you'll go straight back into there, but for this example, that's my first stitch. And with the tail end, so there's 2 options of hiding your tails. I can either just put that behind like that and crochet over it. So I'm going to go into my stitch and catch the tail here behind, I'm just holding it there with my finger, and continue with my double crochet. And then the next stitch, and then the next stitch. And you can continue on like that for as long as you want. I just find that it's obvious on your work. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see that that's obvious. And if you're doing something that's inside of your work, you've covered, you're joining something and that's inside, you're not going to really see it. That's okay. But I just don't find that that is going to be sufficient to not unravel. So you can then either sew this back in a few times from there, or alternatively, I'm going to take this out, start again. So it's the end of my work. This is my working yarn on to my right. Just going to make a little slip knot and go into my stitch, which is the V there, and under my V, under the 2 stitches, and my tails is sort of hanging to the side there. My working yarn, I'm going to pull that through the stitch, and I'm just going to pull it through like a little slip stitch there, and that will sort of give it a bit of security. Chain up 3, leave that to the side, hang out the side, and continue on with my work. All right, so just continue on to the end. All right, so let's just say that you've finished this row and you can leave these all until the end of your project, because it's nice to get going on your project and get as many rows as done as quickly as you can. So for these sorts of projects, you can leave it to the end. It's really up to you if you want to weave them in as you go. So to weave in your end, this is always going to be my front side, so that's always going to be the front side of my work. So whenever I weave in an end, I'm going to make sure that it's on the back side of my project. So I think this needle will just be a little small, but I'll try this one. So try and find the most appropriate. So that's okay, that works. And I actually like the small pointy edge for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave this through, and I'm going to sort of try and go underneath the pink row as well, just so it's really embedded. Pull that through. Probably a bit tight because the needle is a bit small. I'm just going to pull it, and just not too tight, because I don't want to change the shape of the edge too much. So you go through maybe 3 or 4 stitches, and then I'm going to come back, so I'll go through a different stitch and under a different stitch and try and just weave it through, so it's not going exactly the same stitches that I went through the first row. So that's probably secure, and you can see it's not as obvious because you've gone further under the stitch than just the other method, which is crocheting over it. And again, I'll just do that, pop that through there, and just use, you know, your thumb just to make sure that you're not just pulling it way too tight, but firm, but not changing the shape there. So that's a few times. And I'm going to snip that off, and you can see that that's fairly neat. So again, you know, I've finished my row. You can come back, doesn't matter when you want to change, when you're going to sew on your edges. Say, for example, this was going to be a scarf. Then I can leave this tail here, because then I could sort of make a fringe and just add that one into the fringe, or we can sew that in. So once again, so if I wanted to go back to the pink, if I'm going to do that every row, maybe it's just at the beginning of a scarf or something where you've got just a couple of changed colours, and then you want to do the rest in blue, and just so you've got a little contrast at the beginning. So again, I like to make just a little slip knot. You don't have to. So if we just go into our stitch, which is here on the corner, that first stitch is always slightly angled down to the side. I could just leave a reasonable tail. I could just pull it through like that and then continue on crocheting. Maybe I'd crochet over the first stitch and then leave it just to hold that down. Continue crocheting. Or you don't do it that way. Put my little slip knot on, find the end stitch, which is here, under the V's. I'm just going to move that to the back, just so it's out of the way. Grab the pink yarn, pull it through the blue there, and just slip knot there. And that just sort of secures it. So the beginning chain for a double crochet can either be 2 or 3, depends on the pattern or what you've seen as a guide on YouTube, or if someone's taught you. And it's going to continue crocheting. Just imagine I've got to the end of my project there. And I want to weave in that end. So I guess the only issue is when you put the little slip knot in, there will be that little bulge there. So I'll see. That's too small to do that method. Get a bigger needle. Fold my yarn. Pop that through. It's going to, you need a bit of length so you can work with the yarn. So don't cut it too short. So I'm just going to grab under that blue stitch as well. And I'll just do it cautiously. And if you pull that through, that slip knot there's not too bad on the side. So just a preference in the size of your yarn, whether or not you put that slip knot through. It's just one method. I just change depending on how I feel on the day. I'll go through a couple of stitches and try and catch under the blue as well. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to alternate and try and go through. And then back one more time. So I think that's a reasonably tidy way of sewing on the ends, just sewing them in, and it's not too obvious and it looks fairly neat and tidy. Okay, I hope that helps. Bye.